As one of the most well-known brands in America, Firestone has a history of bringing solutions and bringing technology to the farm and ranch. And tonight on Rural America Live, tire experts from Firestone will share their rich history of the company, the breadth of their products available for today's farmer-rancher, and even ways that tires can help you on the farm, from increasing efficiencies to increasing yields. Doesn't sound like they connect, but they certainly do. And we'll learn tonight there's more to tires than just round black pieces of rubber. Good evening and welcome to this edition of Rural America Live. Mark Oppel, thanks for joining us. A pleasure for us tonight to welcome for the first time to RFD TV and Rural Radio Studios the folks from Firestone. Tony Orlando, President, Firestone Ag, joining me to lead off this hour. And we have two more of your team joining us. Tony, finally, welcome to our studios.
Mark, it's great to be here. Thank you very much for having us on set today. Thank you to RFD TV and to Rural America Live. We've got a great story to tell about something we're very passionate about, Firestone Ag, our products, our solutions, and really, most importantly, the benefits to the American farmer.
Absolutely, yeah. We are likewise echo the same. Looking forward to a partnership here. This is just the first of many things we can do together to spread the good word of Firestone. People tuning in say, well, Firestone and tires, what is there that I don't know already about tires, Tony? They're going to learn a lot tonight.
I hope so. We tend to do that.
Talk about some of the things that may not be familiar with that we're going to cover during this hour, if you would.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the history of Firestone Ag, the heritage that we have with Harvey Firestone, the benefits that we provide in tires and our technology and our solutions, and as well as the importance that our dealers have in delivering our product to the farmer.
Very good. Yeah, all important dealer network. Before we get too far into the hour, talk about your background. Understand Michigan is home originally for you.
Originally from the state of Michigan. Grew up there in a suburb of Detroit. Spent quite a number of years there, and then eventually moved to Chicago, where I met my lovely wife and had my two beautiful daughters, and have my in-laws back there who used to farm as well, down in Rantoul in central Illinois, and eventually moved around a little bit in the U.S., and then have been with Firestone Ag now for 2 years living in Nashville.
Exactly. Now, talking about your position as the president of the Ag division and all the things that entails, keeps you busy, keeps you traveling. You and I were talking about your schedule.
Yeah, I travel quite a bit. It's great to get out to see farmers. I travel to see dealers, the OE equipment manufacturers as well. We got our manufacturing plant back in Des Moines. And yeah, travel quite extensively.
Exactly. All right, and we're going to be opening our telephone lines. Tony Orlando leading things off here for the hour, but again, two more of the team will be joining us here in our second segment, and we'll be opening our phone lines later. It's Rural America Live, and you are a very important part to call and ask questions here of tires, the efficiency here, and how they can make a difference on your farm. Before we get started on that, though, here, I know, people may forget, I guess, the rich history of this company, Tony. I know you wanted to start there and talk about Harvey Firestone. It's
incredible the heritage that Firestone Ag have. Harvey Firestone started the Firestone Tire and Rubber Company in 1990 in Akron, or 1900, excuse me, in Akron, Ohio. Yeah. Harvey was a fourth-generation farmer. His farmstead was in Columbiana, Ohio, which is roughly about 60 miles southeast of Akron. And Harvey was always interested in helping farmers in the field. In fact, he was the one that was responsible for introducing the first pneumatic tire in 1932. Wow. Harvey was a guy that really worked hard, but also had a love for being in the field. And it was not uncommon to see Harvey Firestone working in the factory that he owned, working shoulder to shoulder with his workers. But he'd be up in the early part of the morning, farming, late part of the afternoon, farming, and certainly on weekends. And his family continued to farm long after the success that he had with Firestone. He had 7 kids. All of them were farming in the farming community, and 5 of them were on the board of directors for Firestone Ag.
You've got some vintage video that you brought with you tonight that our viewers can really appreciate here, talking and showing Harvey and the team way back. And again, a lot of the pictures here he's literally out in the fields where he always loved to be.
Yes. It was hard to take him off the field. As a farmer, all the farmers here, recognize it's in your blood, and it's hard to take you off the field. You love to be in the field working with other farmers as well.
Mm-hmm. And he was committed even then, I think, as I review the history, he was even committed then to the future of agriculture. He had a vision, as a lot of those people did at that time. He had a vision for what could be the American farmer.
Yeah, FFA, Future Farmers of America, it was established in 1928, certainly promoting the education of young men and women to have careers in agriculture. And Firestone actually started being involved with FFA as early as the 1940s. So roughly 10 years after it started, a decade after it started, Firestone was involved. In 1944, we actually chaired the foundation board and setting up a sustainable governance structure for having that entity exist all through today. We've been involved with FFA being individual contributors. There's an individual contributor board that we've had employees participate on. Mm-hmm. There's a corporate giving board that we've had employees participate on. And today we actually also financially contribute to FFA. We hire FFA graduates, if you will, and a wonderful community, wonderful organization, and we continue to support it all the way through today.
Yeah, 50 years plus here, and we know certainly at RFD-TV, the importance of our next generation. That's why we attend that convention every year, as you do.
Yes.
The folks at Firestone. Again, when you talk about the history, and here's some black and white pictures of some very influential people that Harvey Firestone associated with in those early years.
The impact that these three individuals had on the world is phenomenal. So Harvey Firestone, Henry Ford, and of course Thomas Edison. Wow. So the relationship really started between Henry Ford and Harvey Firestone. A great business relationship ended up extending itself into a friendship. In fact, Harvey was the gentleman responsible for first putting a tire on the Model T. Firestone tires on the Model T.
Yeah, is that right?
Yeah, and these three gentlemen, as well as John Burroughs, an environmentalist, would travel all around, actually camping. And if you can appreciate the amount of attention that these four guys would garner in the U.S. Sitting presidents, President Coolidge, President Harding would actually also go camping with them. And this ended up leading into a relationship that Harvey Firestone developed with the military. In fact, Lieutenant Dwight Eisenhower, the 34th President of the United States, in 1919 was leading a military convoy out of Washington, D.C. to San Francisco. And on a Sunday evening, they started and they ended up in Columbiana, Ohio, at the farmstead of Harvey Firestone. He had them over for dinner for 300 people for a couple of hours.
Wow.
And then the next day, what Harvey decided to do was to actually loan a couple of his trucks with pneumatic tires to the military. Yeah. So the military continued to move from Columbiana out to San Francisco, and they were actually doing what we'll call a pilot of looking at the difference between a pneumatic tire and a hard rubber tire. And they realized the big benefit to pneumatic tires. But also being on these roads, they realized that, hey, these roads are very, very tough. Yeah. And then Harvey Firestone, along with Henry Ford, became a spokesperson for setting up what we now know as the interstate highway system. They became, vagabonds and trying to improve the roads throughout the U.S. And they had this movement called the Good Roads Movement, which again resulted in the interstate.
Wow, how about that? Yeah, well, you understand that with Eisenhower, and they call it the Eisenhower interstate system here. Interesting. I was reading that story as well, and it didn't take them long when they left Ohio with the pneumatic tires. They rode different. They wore better than the military had at the beginning of the trip, and by the time they got to the West Coast, the sale was already been made at that point. It sounds like.
Yeah, I mean these were very, very durable tires. The roading was excellent versus the hard rubber tires.
It must be really gratifying for you to look back on that kind of history. Henry Ford, Thomas Edison, and Harvey Firestone really was a common denominator between the three men, and then Mr. Burroughs as well.
Yes. An incredible history, and certainly an honor for myself to lead the Firestone Ag organization. These guys were historical figures. Harvey Firestone, historical figure, incredible businessmen. And the thing that was great about Harvey Firestone is he loved to continue to bring new technology to farmers, trying to improve their productivity. And it feels wonderful being able to lead an organization like that. We've got a strong tradition. In fact, Harvey would be very satisfied, very pleased to see one of the recent honors that Firestone Ag has had is there's a foundation called the Baldrige Foundation, which recognizes great quality in manufacturing and service. And the state of Iowa has an organization called the Recognition for Performance Excellence. And recently, Iowa Governor Branstad recognized Firestone Ag for the excellent quality of product, as well as an attention to detail and having a system in place to demonstrate continuous improvement. And I think this is something that Harvey would be very, very proud about today from Firestone Ag.
Yeah, it's the gold level award here. No more black and white pictures. These are really great vintage pictures, Tony, that you have brought with you here. And again, showing the early days. Who would have thought that they would evolve to where it started right there, to where it is today?
Yeah.
And we're going to talk a little bit more about that Des Moines, Iowa plant. I know that our next, two more of your team members are going to come in, and then talk about the technology and the innovations that have taken place here then. But again, Harvey Firestone, would have to be pleased as to what the people have done since in 50 plus years since then.
Absolutely. I mean, it's been a great business. We continue to grow. You think about the heritage of the business. The first pneumatic farm tire introduced in 1932, and we continue to look to evaluate, introduce new tire technology, new tread compounds, new designs. And we've got a test center. Our test center actually is back in Columbiana, Ohio, the farmstead of Harvey Firestone. We've got this incredible rich history and the connection to the farmer. We've got the recipe. The recipe has changed. The ingredients have changed over the years. We've got this great recipe. And in fact, we've recently introduced a new campaign. We call it Farm Hard, where it recognizes the difficulty, the tough environment farming is. Early mornings, late nights, bad weather, good weather, throughout the whole season. We recognize that. We want farmers to realize they can depend on us. And so we've got this brand tagline saying, if you farm harder than anyone else, you better be a Firestone farmer. And that's really what we believe in.
Wow, I like that a lot. Are you getting, what kind of response are you getting from your customers when they hear that? I mean, that makes me feel proud just being part of farm broadcasting, but to a farmer rancher out there, it has to speak volumes.
It resonates because it's important because it realizes that we recognize their environment. We know what they're looking for, and we've got the products and dealers to help support them, and they love it.
Let's talk about the heritage here of the Firestone brand and how it's influenced agriculture, kind of bringing it to the business that we know as agriculture here today, Tony.
Yeah, it's evolved. I mean, certainly it's evolved. The tire technology has evolved. I mean, at one point it was primarily bias tires. Now they're, more radial tires. The loads, have changed on these tires. You've got bigger equipment. These tires are expected to, carry bigger loads than they ever have. There's, a proliferation of various brands, of types of equipment. And so we have continued to keep up, and we've got an extensive product breadth to help support all of what the farmer needs for their equipment. And
you stand behind that with a warranty, and we'll get into this more in detail as well, Tony, but let's talk a little bit about the warranty right here and now, because it's something that you're proud of and you should be.
Yeah, so the warranty, the basis of the warranty, you've got to first start with manufacturing. As I said, this Baldrige principles that we've been recognized for at the gold level. We've got great manufacturing footprint in Des Moines, Iowa, doing really well there. But we also have a very good test facility in Columbiana. We've got indoor drums and autonomous tractors that really measure the durability and the life of a tire. We've got what's called our mean machine, which measures really load and treads and various treads and what kind of traction you can get with our tires and making sure we have no rim slip. And so these high quality standards that we have, as well as the testing, the heritage that we have really close to the farmer, Really, we believe we've got the best-in-class dealers as well and provide exceptional coverage. And so that's why we have an industry-leading warranty. We back up great manufacturing and testing with an industry-leading warranty as well.
Exactly, yeah. And no matter what the season is, getting the crop in the ground, getting it out in the fall, whatever it might be, traveling, just getting the produce to and from the farm, Firestone is there. And sometimes if there's downtime, that dealer is certainly a very important part of this whole equation, isn't he?
They're an extension of ourselves. We've got a great dealer network. We work well with them. They rely upon us very heavily. Most of our dealers are incredibly brand loyal to ourselves, and we've been putting products, in their shelves and inventory, and we very rarely will run out of a product.
Talk about Firestone working to help farmers understand tires. We began the hour saying, well, Firestone and tires, what more do I need to know? Well, you're going to learn a lot more during the hour. We're just getting a good start here. And you do take a lot of time and spend time educating people on the new technologies that are available and help them become more efficient.
Yeah, we've got other folks from our divisions here, world-class experts, great guys, Tom Rogers and Brad Harris, that'll be joining us later today on set. Who talk about the technology, the construction of the tire, the solutions that we provide to the farmers, and really the impact that it will have on the yield and to really the farmer's bottom line. Most farmers do not think about tires once they get in the field, and certainly from Firestone, that's exactly what you can rely upon us, is not having issues. But we really want you also as a farmer to spend a little bit more time on your tires, making sure you've got the proper inflation as an example. That will have a big impact on your bottom line.
Very good. Tony, we'll have you back a little bit later. You're going to come back and finish out the hour with us here, but it was great to get started here.
Good seeing you, Mark.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you very much.
A great start. Again, welcome here. Just getting a good start for the hour. Tony Orlando, president of Firestone Ag, joining us. We're going to take a break, and we mentioned two more of his team is joining us. Hope you're taking careful notes. We'll be opening our telephone lines a bit later and hearing more about the Firestone and new technologies, how it can help you become more efficient and even help your bottom line on the farm. More as we continue after this. Welcome back to Rural America Live. Mark Oppold, again joined by our friends from Firestone. Two more experts here. Well, by the way, opening our telephone lines here to answer your questions about tire technology and tire care. Let me just give that number right now. Let's get right to it. And the hour is going to go fast enough as it is. We want to hear from you. It's Rural America Live, and as I mentioned, you're an important part of that. The questions you have, you don't know how many other people may be watching, asking the same question. They just don't pick up the phone to call. Thank you for doing that. 877-731-6733. Lines open now. 877-731-6733. Joining me now is Tom Rogers, as mentioned, the Executive Director of Global Agricultural Solutions, and also Brad Harris, the Manager of Global Agricultural Field Engineering. Welcome to both of you here tonight.
Mark, thanks for having us.
Thanks
Good to have you here. Great to get started with Tony and to hear the history. And I was mentioning some of the great black and white pictures, even some video of Harvey Firestone here, and we'll get more into that as well. But to the two of you, let's start with you, Tom, and a little bit about your background first. Where's home for you originally?
Well, live in Des Moines, Iowa now, and I work, been there for about 10 years with Firestone Ag. I live there with my wife and 3 daughters. Prior to that, and the 20 years of my professional career has all been in the ag tire and ag equipment industry, including some time with John Deere. My background goes beyond that from a farming standpoint. I'm a 4th-generation landowner, along with my sister and my mother, of a 900-acre farm in New Canton, Illinois.
What part of Illinois is that?
So that's west central Illinois and Mississippi River bottoms,
Okay.
south of Quincy, Illinois.
Very good. So you have, go ahead, and the farm background
and
there.
so that's just kind of cut my teeth there. I didn't grow up on the farm, but that's where I learned a lot about farming with my grandfather, as well as have cousins that farm in Timewell, Illinois, and really learned a lot over the years for those guys.
Absolutely. So we know when we speak and we talk about what's going on at the farm right now, you're very close to that thing back in Illinois.
Absolutely. Wish I could get back more often.
I'll bet you do. Me too. At our farm up in Iowa at the time. Tom, good to have you here.
Thank you.
Brad, it was good to have you on our Market Day report earlier. But talk about your background before we get into engineering side of the business here. Where is home for you originally?
Grew up and continue to live in north central Ohio, a little town called New London, where I live with my wife and 2 stepdaughters on the family farm. Dad and I farm about 750 acres there on the home farm, multi-generational. Have been with Firestone Ag Tires for 14 years now. Wow. Started off in the product design and the engineering side, and then 4 years ago went into the field engineering side.
Very good. So again, you know where you're speaking from when you're talking about engineering. You see it, you feel it, and have done it, and lived it here, and still do. What part of Ohio is the family farm?
North Central, just south of the lake, about 30 miles, right in between Toledo and Cleveland.
Very good. Good to have you here. Again, Tom and Brad are here to answer your questions. And so if you do have a question for us, don't wait too long here. Telephone lines are open at 877-731-6733. Tom, start with you. Talk a little bit about, we talked about the great history here with Tony, but there's a global, I'm going to call it a global footprint of Firestone.
Absolutely. And Mark, just as Tony talked about when we kind of kicked it off, Harvey Firestone introduced the first pneumatic farm tire in 1932, and we've come a long way from that time. Today, from that one plant in Akron, Ohio, where we made farm tires, today we make farm tires and our Firestone agricultural rubber tracks in 12 facilities around the world.
Wow.
With that, we supply from all of those various factories, all your major original equipment manufacturers, John Deere, Case IH, New Holland, AGCO, et cetera, for their production facilities around the world. You go a little bit beyond that too from a footprint standpoint and a distribution standpoint. To get tires to the farmers, we have to have a distribution network.
Sure.
We have that globally, and a great example is our distribution network here in North America, our certified Firestone Farm Tire Dealer Network, where we have 1,400 points of sale and can touch customers everywhere.
And technology centers around the world here as well, is that right?
Exactly. Definitely a global footprint from a technology standpoint as well. We utilize Bridgestone and our parent company, Bridgestone's corporate resources, and we have 3 technology centers. Akron, Ohio is our primary ag tire development center, but we also have one in Rome, Italy, as well as Tokyo, Japan, for tires and as well as tracks. But in each place, we have dedicated ag tire engineers who are developing not only our next generation of tires, but continuing to improve on what we're building today and what we've built in the past.
And Brad, I think you said earlier something, Mark, there's a crown jewel, and it happens to be in Ohio.
It does. It's that Columbiana test facility. It's part of the original Firestone farmstead, where we bring in all the tires that we're testing and developing into that facility. 350-acre farm where we can put those tires through the rigors of testing so that we know if it passes our internal standard, it's going to work on your farm today. So that's the really crown jewel, and that's what we're really proud of when we talk about Firestone Ag.
So, Tom, before the break, Tony was mentioning Firestone has several solutions for producers, farmers, and ranchers to consider when choosing a tire. But let's get a little more detail about those choices they have.
Right. And when you talk about solutions, there's a lot of layers to that. I always like to start off kind of with a story, and every time we're at shows, you guys were talking about shows earlier, you get to talking with farmers, and a great question to ask them is, how many tires do you really have on your farm? Have you ever thought about it? And a lot of times guys will get counting and they get over 100 and they're like, I give up. But we've done a lot of studies, and really if you take as an example a 2,000 acre farm, grain farm in the Midwest, there's an average of 204 tires on that.
Wow.
And of course we immediately think of tractors or combines.
Sure.
Of course implement tires add up real fast as well. But as well you think of truck tires, grain trucks, semis. You think about pickups. Every farmer's got a lot of pickups or several, and even the family vehicles. So you add all this up, and the benefit the Firestone brand has, and our Firestone, not only Firestone Ag, but Firestone is we can supply every tire a farmer needs, not just equipment, but everything on all his vehicles.
And that continues to expand here as well as those, and there's technology and advancement in every single one of the tire, different sizes, different uses here as well.
Exactly, and what's happened is you've gotten into such a complexity of equipment, specialized uses for sprayers, specialized combine uses and harvest uses, where we wind up over 80 years developing a lot of tires. Equipment doesn't die on the farm either. It lasts a long time. So our offering is kind of broad and wide, and we cover that majority of not only older equipment, but the next generation of technology. And again, I got to mention too, we still cover tracks as well with our rubber tracks offering that we're rounding out.
Yeah, let's talk about the rubber tracks here. That's something I'm not sure, probably longer than I remember. The first tracks came on the market here. Firestone was a leader then too.
Well, and Bridgestone way back actually developed the first rubber tracks originally for construction use. So we've got a lot of heritage there. We're really bringing that into our fold as we try to provide a solution to the farmer for all of his ground engaging activity, not just tires, but being the only supplier that can supply tracks and tires for a farm. And the tracks business is an opportunity we see, and it's an area we're investing.
Very good. Again, our friends from Firestone here for the first time on Rural America Live. Sure, great to have them here. Just getting a good start. We mentioned our telephone lines open and for you to give us a call. If you're just joining us here and don't have that number in front of you, here it is, 877-731-6733. We're going to go to our telephones here. Ryan has called us from Minnesota and up first tonight. Ryan, thanks for calling and welcome.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Go ahead.
One question I had, there's been a lot of talk about this 23-degree tread pattern from Firestone. How does 23-degree tread help me in the field?
That's an excellent question, Ryan. The 23-degree tread pattern was designed back in the 60s and 70s, and they brought in all kinds of different tires and tested the bar angles to see which gives us the most traction. And the 23-degree bar gives us the most traction and still has great ride ability as we go up and down the road. So we've done a lot of tests at that Columbiana test facility to show the Firestone 23-degree traction advantage. So when we're in the field, we're trying to get the most done in a day. That allows us to have better traction than anything else out there with a higher bar angle.
How about that? Yeah, very good. Anything to add to the question here from Ryan?
No, I think, and again, and Brad talked about that 23-degree and the effort that went into that, and it's just a staple of the Firestone brand. You see it across our portfolio. Farmers recognize it as well, so it's a great asset for us.
Okay. Very good. Thanks for the call, Ryan. That leaves a line open for you if you're just joining us here as Ryan calls us here from Minnesota to lead things off. 877-731-6733 from Minnesota to Oklahoma we go. This is Lyle. Lyle, thank you for calling. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was wondering how you come to the conclusion that on the IF and the VF sprayer tires that the premature tire failure was caused due to customers going down the road with the sprayer loaded. Versus running up and down the road.
Right, and I think what's being asked here is with these high clearance sprayers, we're asking those machines to carry a lot of the extra weight that those tires aren't designed to carry going up and down the roads at the speeds. A lot of those machines are designed to be filled up in the field, transported empty up and down the road, and then filled up in the field and tendered. And based on a lot of the testing that we've done at Columbiana, we can pinpoint a removal reason, whether it's an overload condition or an underload condition. And looking at the tire after we've tested it in the field, and maybe the problem that you had with it, we've brought it into our test or adjustment center. We've cut the tire, we looked at the internal construction, and we can kind of pinpoint through forensics what actually happened to that. And that's probably what happened there with that condition.
Yeah. As an engineer, that's your kind of your bread and butter, isn't it, Brad?
Yeah, we've seen so many things through the years, and typically, if it's a problem that you've had, we have seen it, and we can kind of work with that customer to end up getting it fixed in the end.
Yeah, thanks for the call, Lyle. That's what the hour is all about, helping those and answering questions like that. What about, does it make any difference if he's, and thanks for the call, line open for you, by the way, to join us, traveling a gravel road as opposed to now there's more and more hard surface roads that this equipment going up and down these roads on a regular basis, Brad? Does that make a difference?
That will affect the tread wear of the particular tire. So going up and down a lot of different gravel roads, we may see more chipping and chunking that would occur onto the bar where that gravel would cut it. When we get onto the hard surfaces, the concretes and the asphalts, that's when we'll start getting rapid wear, or a more rapid wear condition to it, just from being on that harder surfaces. And we'll see it a lot of the times on sprayers because we're going up and down the road, and then we have to get over to the side to let someone pass pass us or oncoming traffic go by, and going from the ditch and back onto the road surfaces, that's when we get a lot of premature wear because we're getting a lot of side scruffing of that particular tire.
Wow. Things you don't really think about here, just going down the road. That's why we're here tonight. Again, thanks for those calls, and we look for more of you. In fact, let's go to Michigan. Richard calling us from Michigan. Hi, Richard.
Hey, good evening, fellas. How are you?
Just fine.
Hey,
Go
I'm
ahead.
I'm calling on the old spade tire you used to have, or the race tire. Is it still being made, and is it still available?
With the R2 tire, the Rice and Cane, the spade tire, yes, we still make those in some sizes today. We make those in the bias line and in some radial sizes. That is one of those things that's a really specialty market, and we do have some of those still available today.
How about that? Yeah, you can tell they are longtime users of Firestone products, ain't you?
He knows the spade name. Yeah, you drop that spade name, you know he knows what he's talking about.
Talk about how these, and we certainly welcome more calls as we work through the hour here, viewers and listeners. So again, let me give that telephone number before we get back to our conversation with Tom and Brad. It's toll-free 877-731-6733. Our friends from Firestone look forward to hearing from you and answering your questions, helping you on the farm or ranch. Talk a little bit about, Tom, how these agricultural tires here now, how are they actually built?
So, and maybe if you let me, I think being from Des Moines and spending the last 10 years there, I'll talk a little bit about our facility.
Please.
Because our farm tire plant in Des Moines is the largest plant that Firestone has globally that builds farm tires. And the facility itself sits on about 100 acres on the north side of Des Moines. We have over 2 million square feet of manufacturing space. With about 1,300 employees, we can manufacture in a 24-hour period about 900,000 pounds worth of tires in a given day.
Wow.
We use pounds because small tires, big tires, a lot of different mix. It's kind of hard to throw a number around, but pounds is a good measurement, especially from our manufacturing guys. So we've been in business for a long time, and Tony talked about that. We've been building tires since the 1940s, farm tires in Des Moines. So there's a lot of history to that plant there too. And it's really a lot, it's almost a family atmosphere, just as the farming business is a family atmosphere. Our manufacturing group in Des Moines is the same way.
Yeah, you've got multi-generational fathers and dads working together.
Exactly. We even have mothers and sons, husbands and wives. So, there's a full complement of diversity within our factory, and that 1,300 employment level is very impressive. I think you even think too, and what all those folks do, even at 72 years old from a manufacturing standpoint, our factory is a showcase. We build, it's not easy to build farm tires. They're really big, they're really heavy. It takes a lot to move them around. It takes a lot of activity in that process. And I like to quote our plant manager, Greg Halford. He says, "We're not a push button factory." It's a craft to build a farm tire, and it takes body ply after body ply. And the good thing is we've got the best craftsmen in the world building our farm tires.
I can tell you, I've been by that plant many times, and on my trips to our home in Iowa, going around that north side of Des Moines, it's right there. It seems like there's always cars. You run that pretty well 24
hours a day. Factory's in operation, yeah. And we flex on days, some as demands there, but yes, it's always easier to run something hot and continue to run it 24 hours a day.
Exactly. And now a rail service in there too, I understand. That could bring that right into the plant.
A lot of our raw materials come in by rail. We do truck as well, but yeah, because of the volume we churn, the capacity of rail cars brings it right in. We've got all the facilities, in the dead of winter in Des Moines, it can be 10 degrees. We've got to get raw materials in, get them warmed up, and get them into the production process.
How does engineering figure into this, Brad, here? Even though it's not in Ohio, it's in Iowa here, but you're very close to that as well.
Right. And our design team in Akron, Ohio is always going out to Des Moines to follow tire builds and make sure that what they've designed can be manufactured in a facility like Des Moines, and constantly working back and forth with the people on the floor and the engineers at the plant to make sure that it's a product that can be made and sold to the customers.
And I've been taking notes here all day long here and taking some here tonight. But talk a little bit more about the engineering side, and I'm going to, I'll take careful notes here. I know you'll try to keep it simple for people like me here, but something I know you enjoy talking about.
That's true, and I will keep it simple. One thing to really note with a tire is just a big pressure vessel. and we have to design the construction of that tire to contain the air but still be flexible enough to generate traction and to be durable. And being a farmer, I know the importance of having that durable product out there, being able to use it on our farm and have that reliability. So that's one of the major things when we're designing. We want it to be reliable with that durability in there.
We already had a caller ask about tread patterns here. How do they or not change here over the years and as it relates to our agricultural use?
With agriculture, the best thing that we want to make sure that we have out there is traction.
Yeah.
We want it on our drive tires, on the rear of the tractor, on four-wheel drives. The 23-degree bar is what's helped us get the best traction out there in the field. If you look at a front-wheel assist tractor, you'll notice that our tires don't look the same on the front as they do the rear. We have a curved bar design on the front of that tire to help with increased wear life of that tire because that front wheel assist is just an assist. It doesn't generate the traction. We've got specialty tires for those sprayer markets, a bigger, wider bar to help with the wear rates because they do go up and down the road a lot. So it all depends on the application and what the performance targets are being asked for.
Our friends from Firestone joining us here. It's Rural America Live and looking for calls from you. If you have a question here, telephone lines are open, 877-731-6733. Moving on here, back over to you, Tom. Tell a little bit about the changes that farmers are going through here right now and the tires adapting to those changes.
Well, and that's the unique thing about agriculture and what I learned, even a long time ago. There's constant change.
Yeah.
And one of the big things that changes, and especially maybe in the last 20 years, is the capacity and the size of today's equipment. Yeah. 25 or 30 years ago, a 12-row planter on a Donahue trailer was a big planter. And, today, and in the last 20 years or so, these implement widths and these planter widths have probably doubled. And a tire guy, when you hear double or you hear bigger equipment, you immediately think, how are we going to carry that load down the road or in the field or wherever it is? So I think creating capacity to carry the load, and Brad's already mentioned pressure vessel. That's what we're trying to do. Is we've got an item that's going to carry that piece of equipment down the road, and a great example of really leveraging our strengths. We talk about implements, and implements continuing to grow. Over the last 5 years, one of the projects that I've worked on at Firestone is to develop what we call destination farm radials. And we've radialized the implement tire side of the market. And again, what that's done for us is developed higher capacity tires that put down a better footprint, a bigger footprint, and even carry these greater loads at lower inflation pressures than bias tires. So I think overall, and what we've benefited from is the strength of our overall corporation and leveraging technology from our truck tire folks and our passenger tire folks and how they build tires and how they build radial tires to create these tires that really help revolutionize how large implements are carried.
What about things you mentioned, stubble, or in our conversations here, stubble puncture, damage, things like that?
Well, and stubble, especially in the last 10 to 15 years, has been a real issue on the farm as crop genetics, and stalks and stems become harder and harder. A tire just cannot stand up to that type of abuse, especially one stalk after another. And so Brad, our engineer folks, and our guys in Akron are always trying to develop better compounds and better ways of making a tire survive. Implement tires are ones that really take the brunt of that many times going across a field that's just a bit, being worked for the first time. So with our radial implement tires, we get the benefit of steel belts and steel body plies that help with punctures, and as well the compounds we've developed and kind of borrowed from our truck tire folks are harder, more durable, and so we get better resistance to that chipping and pecking, stubble erosion that you get over time with stubble.
Very good. All right. Again, telephone lines are open for you. I want to go back to Brad here in a minute, but I want to make sure you have the phone number. If you have a question, we want to get it answered before the hour is over. 877-731-6733. And Brad, Tom talked about some of the changes going on here through the years here and different implements and the size here. Talk about the changes in technology that go along with that.
Right. And one of the biggest changes that we've seen in the past 7 to 8 years and that ag tire business is the new IF and VF load formulas and standards. And these new standards allow the tires to carry more load at the same inflation pressure as a standard radial. So what we do is we get a longer footprint, more traction in the field, and get more done per day with those particular tires.
Talk about what we're seeing here. Some examples you brought with you. What are we looking at here?
And what we're looking at here is some tire footprints. This was last week doing some field cultivating in north central Ohio. As I told my boss, I was doing some traction testing that day.
There you go.
But what we're seeing is a proper footprint, what the bars should look like as we're generating traction in the field if we've got the proper inflation pressure in that tire. Just getting a nice long full bar out of there, allowing us to generate the traction that we need. And then as we look at the tires, we walk around and we look at it. We do on these radial tires want to see a bulge. We want to see a little bit of a cheek on those tires. And with the Firestone product, we typically like to see about 2 to 3 bars making full contact with that soil as we go through the field in dry conditions.
All right, very good. Our hour moving along fast. We're going to take our last break here. I want to give the telephone number as we go to break with more. And Tony Orlando will be rejoining us here for our last segment. And again, taking more of your telephone calls, 877-731-6733. Your questions, our friends from Firestone, ready to talk to you. We continue Rural America Live after this. And welcome back to Rural America Live. We're joined by 3 of our tire experts from Firestone. Tony Orlando, president of Firestone Agricultural Tire, is back with us. Tom Rogers and Brad Harris stay with us here as well, taking your calls. So give us a call. Our time is getting shorter. 877-731-6733. We look forward to hearing from you before the hour is over. Brad, before the break, we were talking about some of the additional benefits here. If you might touch on a few more of those.
Right. And the biggest benefit with any agriculture tire is making sure that we have the proper inflation pressure in that tire to carry the load. And that, when we talk about pressure vessel, that's what's doing the work. The air in that tire carries the load to get it done. If we don't have enough air in it, or we're overloading that tire, we have damages to the tire, like that second caller we had today, where we're putting too much load on there, breaking it down. But if we overinflate the tire, we lose traction in the field, lose efficiency. So what we do have out there is our nice inflation pressure calculator that customers can use. This inflation pressure calculator is set up so that a customer can go online, type what size they may have on their tractor, like with this one is a 480/85 R34. And tell it what axle you're on. It doesn't matter for the calculator, but for your own records. And then you type your axle load in. And this is getting by weighing the tractor with scales from the farm or from at the co-op.
Okay.
And say how you're using, duals, singles, triples, and then hit calculate. And then this calculator will tell you what inflation pressure you need to run in all 4 of those tires to be able to carry the load. Plus you can email those results to yourself, shop managers, your tire dealer when they come out to do inspections on your specific tractor, to let you know what you need to have in that tire. And what we do on our farm is once we have those inflation pressures, we take a marker and right by the valve core, write that pressure down so that we know when we're doing that morning inspection or that putting everything out or getting everything out in the morning, what those pressures should be, and using a good inflation pressure gauge to check it to make sure that we're protecting that investment in those tires.
You know, if our viewers and listeners go through that process and do that test here, do you have any history of what they're going to find? That are they overinflating or underinflating generally if you talk to some folks around the country?
In most cases, it's an overinflation pressure on the rear of these machines and an underinflation on the front. People don't realize how heavy the front of these new mechanical front wheel assist tractors have become over the years. So that's what they'll typically see after you weigh the tractor, see what those weights are, put those values in there, and they'll be underinflated on the front and maybe over on the rear.
So I'm going to add to what Brad's saying. I think it's critical to understand that the tractor has a certain amount of horsepower. To transmit that horsepower to the ground most efficiently, you have to set that pressure to the ideal inflation pressure for the load. Knowing the load is not always easy. And again, like Brad said, go to the co-op, go to scales. Our certified Firestone farm tire dealers, a lot of guys have the scale pads you can drive up on. But understanding that load and the different loads for different applications, setting the pressures appropriately is what makes that machine run most efficient, as well as versus the underinflated is when you start having tire damage, and then you got cost.
Very good. We're going to go to a couple more phone calls here as we work through the top of the hour. This is Sean from Georgia. Sean, thank you for calling and welcome.
Thanks. I was just calling wondering about whether your ag tires are made in the U.S.
I'll take that. Great question. Yeah, we talked, and maybe you missed the first part of the one of the first segments. The majority of our tires are definitely made in the USA. Our Des Moines, Iowa tire plant, as we talked earlier, is where most of those tires come from. So, and again, the pride coming out of that factory we talked about also, made in the USA is a big piece of that.
And you're proud of that, Tony Orlando rejoining us here, that right here in the USA, and I was telling Tom, I go by that plant in Des Moines many times on back to the farm and hometown in Iowa and see that plant always busy. But again, USA made is always a proud part of the Firestone history.
It is. We've got a great plant, great manufacturing assets, great people at the plant, and there's an incredible amount of pride and workmanship that goes into manufacturing tires, and we've got the best in the business.
So just to complete the conversation here about inflation pressure, to me, that's really kind of the starting point of being more efficient on the farm. Is it that simple here, Brad?
Yeah, and that's what it is. And what we've done is in the fall of 2014, we went out to Iowa and we set up 2 tractors, exactly the same John Deere 8Rs, same size tires, same branded tires, and 1 tractor we set up correctly at 15 psi on the rears. The other tractor we overinflated to 30 psi, and this is a video of it going through. And what we did is we took a cable, attached a cable to the one tractor, and then through a pulley system through the pull tractor, that 4-wheel drive, and attached it to that second tractor. Started both tractors, same speed, same gear, and side by side, and made a pass of 1,000 feet. At the end of that 1,000 feet run, we stopped both tractors and we measured the distance. And it's not a pull test to see which one has the most power, it's a traction test. And the tires that were overinflated didn't complete the course as quickly as the ones properly inflated. And it was 48 feet difference. So 4.8% more efficient by just setting the inflation pressure, knowing those loads. So if someone looks about their fuel bill, what would 4.8% mean to them and their bottom line? And that's where we need to start. So customers just understand, know your weights, we can set the pressures, and if we need to take it to the further step with the new IF and VF technologies, it will help them out even more in the future.
Thanks for bringing that. And you talk about being visual and seeing it right in front of you here. That's the test right there when everything else is the same. So inspecting the tire before you even leave to go to the field here, Brad.
Right, and that's the main thing when we go out and start looking at our equipment before we head to the field, especially with this wet year. Now, once it gets dry out there, we need to run. And so when it's tractor sitting in the shop, looking it over, one of the first things to do is to look at the sidewalls. Make sure there's no cracks, there's no cuts, there's no snags. As long as we're not seeing any of the fibers or the cords inside the tire, you're good to go. Next thing is to look at the tread depth. If there's only 20% tread left, that's when we start needing to look at buying new tires. Once we get below that 20%, we lose that traction in the field. Then we want to look at the tread area to make sure that we don't have any cords exposed, because once we see any kind of steel or fabric, that's when we have problems. Then we just want to make sure that we have the proper inflation pressure set, and that's where we can look to make sure we have full contact with those bars on flat level surfaces. And then one of the biggest reasons we may lose air on those tires is that valve stem. Make sure that it's tight. We've got the cap on there. We've got a good seal on there. And then finally, make sure we've got all our nuts and bolts and our wheel weights secured to those tires because they do roll. We just want to make sure everything's properly torqued so we don't lose a tire and a wheel assembly in the field.
Boy, and this time of the year, when you talk about some of the delays here that people are always wanting to get out there here, talk about compaction before we have to say goodbye here and wrap things up here, but compaction here and how that can be a part of the efficiency we're talking about.
Right, and that's what it comes down to, by having the proper inflation. And as we read all the farm magazines, everyone's talking about running low inflation pressure. Well, that is because the inflation pressure in the tire can be directly related to our soil contact pressure. So if we're running 10 psi on our tire, we're putting about 11 pounds to 12 pounds in the soil. So the lower we can go in the tire, the lower ground compaction. So that's where these new 82 products really shine, because we can carry the same load at less inflation pressure.
And we've covered a lot of ground here tonight, literally and figuratively, I guess, as well, Tony. But before we go, your dealer network, you've thrown a lot of information. They would have all this information that our viewers and listeners can go to starting tomorrow and get their questions answered.
Yeah, we've got the largest dealer network in the U.S., and our dealers are with all the collateral, all the information you need on proper tire inflation, what type of tire, and if not, you can call one of these guys, call us, and we'll get that question answered for you.
Very good. And we're going to give a number here as we wrap things up, where you can call anytime. And if they're not answering and leave a message, they want to talk to you. I'll give that number in a minute. But we're going to come around the horn here. And final thoughts here. Brad, thanks for all the great information. Your final thoughts as we say goodnight.
Inflation pressure. That's the biggest thing. Know your axle load, set your inflation pressure to be the most efficient, and use a good gauge. You don't need to buy a $200-300 inflation pressure gauge, but a nice $10 to $20 digital gauge that you could find at any home improvement store would work beautifully.
Very good. Good to have you here. Come back and see us, would you please? And
Thank
safe
you.
Trip back home. Tom Rogers, your final thoughts tonight.
You know, the biggest thing for me is full line of solutions. And we talked about that at different points, and IF and VF and low inflation pressure options. We have a tire for every need on the farm. Just come find us and we'll get it for you.
And as all the things we talked about here tonight, it sounds like that the getting that tire and checking it more than just in the morning or once a day or once a week.
No, you got to check it. It's like checking the oil. Check it every day before you start the machine, right? Checking the inflation pressure is just as important. Cold days, temperature drops, inflation pressure drops as well.
Very good. Good to have you here as well, Tom. Thank you. Come
Thanks
back and
for
see
having
us.
me.
Tony Orlando, president here of the Ag Division. Thank you for being here. It's a great start for our relationship with Firestone. Your final thoughts tonight.
Well, just want to leave you with our brand promise, really. As you could hear from these two guys, from myself, is we're very, very passionate about Firestone Ag. We've got exceptional technology, a great manufacturing footprint in Des Moines, and we've got great people in Des Moines, great people in Nashville, great people in Akron, Columbiana, and we're very, very proud of the heritage as well. We've been doing this for a long, long time. No one's done it longer than Firestone Ag, and we do it in the USA. Very proud of that. So you can trust us, you can trust our dealers to keep you up and running.
Very good. Welcome again.
Thank you. Great
Come
to
back
see
and
you.
see us,
Thank
all right?
you.
Safe trip for you as well. Tony
Thank
Orlando,
you.
president. Again, it's been a fast hour. We promised we would give you a number. Our folks at Firestone want to answer questions. If you didn't get through tonight and you have a question you'd like to ask them, here's a number to call. It's 844-64-TIRES. I wrote down the number here. It says 844-648-4737. Call that number, write that down, keep it handy. They'd love to talk to you and answer your questions. 844-648-4737. Thanks for joining us tonight, our friends from Firestone. Another reason that RFD TV is rural America's most important network. Thanks for joining us. Good night.